Hey now, gang, welcome to this spinoff, if you will, of the Paper Street podcast. Welcome to Late to the Party, a new program on this growing Paper Street Pictures podcast network. Your host for the following will be yours truly. My name is Shawn Talley, and joining me for this venture, he is a fellow member of the Paper Street Pictures production team. He is Mr. Cameron Burns. What's good, Cameron?
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Movies are good. I'll tell you what else is good. Lost Boys. That's good. Brian Villalobos doesn't know that yet, but we'll see if he agrees.
Well, we'll get to that in just a moment, but to let some folks know the long and short of this program, the intention being we reach out to a guest, a potential guest. We ask them, what is the biggest, most popular, most in the zeitgeist, in the culture kind of movie that for whatever reason you may have never seen? And then we will chat with them ahead of their first watch of it, asking them, is there a reason you never saw it? Or are you actively avoiding it? What do you know about the movie? What do you maybe think this movie is? And so on. And then we come back on the other side of that. We reconvene with them after the viewing. We chat with them about the film, about their experiences watching it, thoughts on it, and wherever else the conversation might take us.
Yeah, what I love about this stuff is like everyone has blind spots. There's just no way around it. There's just not enough hours in the day. There's not enough days in the year. It's just a numbers game. Like you can watch movies, every chance you get, and there's still going to be giant movies you haven't seen. I mean, I don't think I know anyone, and you and I watch a lot of movies, Shawn, and we know a lot of people who watch probably even more than we do. And I don't think I know anyone that doesn't have a giant blind spot movie. So I think it's going to be fun bringing people on and talk about these movies that most everyone else in the world has already seen and seeing where they land on it. I think it's going to be a good time.
Indeed. We're talking like, again, in the culture type ones that you might even know how to quote, even though you've not seen it. So we're looking for folks who've maybe not seen like a Star Wars or Grease or Titanic or Forrest Gump, stuff like that. So we thought this would be a fun one to do with Brian Villalobos, who has seen his share of 80s stuff, but just for whatever reason, he has missed the Lost Boys. So without further ado, let's ask him why. Joining us for this episode is a gentleman you may have seen in a few different Paper Street Pictures features, including Scare Package and Blood Relatives, as well as on the Richard Linklater animated Netflix film Apollo 10.5 and the current Max Original series Love and Death. He is Brian Villalobos. Brian, thank you so much for joining us here.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Hey, Cam. Good.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
There is one more thing about our guest. Mr. Villalobos here has never seen Joel Schumacher's seminal 1987 vampire flick, The Lost Boys.
What?
That's true. Yeah. I missed. It was like 87, right? I was a very young child, and I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I mean, like, I saw a lot of what I was supposed to see. I saw Back to the Future. I saw, what else is like 86, 85, 87? What's around there? You
got Big Trouble in Little China, Princess Bride, RoboCop, Goonies.
Yeah, Goonies, Critters. I got some Critters in there. I got several Critters, but I didn't see Lost Boys. I don't know how it happened. I really don't.
I guess my first question would have to be, how dare you?
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
So it wasn't a movie you were actively avoiding then. It was just.
No, it was. Well, here's the other thing. I may have ended up having. I don't know. Over the years, I've caught up, but I think growing up, so I grew up for 5-6 years of my life in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there was plenty, like I watched American TV, but there were some things that I realized I kind of missed out on, like, Lost Boys was one of them. There was some disconnect. Like I remember when Batman 89 came out, it was in theaters, and movies always took like maybe like a couple months to get down there when I was a kid for whatever reason, American movies. And I remember like Batman 89 was in theaters, and I was watching cable, and they were like, next Batman. And it showed like scenes from Batman 89. And I was like, there's no way it's on TV already. I can't wait. This is amazing. And I ran downstairs and asked my mom, and because I was like, this is another factor that was at play, is that my parents were like, you're not 13. You're not watching a PG-13 movie. So they were pretty strict on me. So there were things I definitely didn't get to see.
Parental guidance demanded, not just suggested.
There you go. They were very letter of the law with some of that stuff. But yeah, I remember running down and being like, Mom, Batman's going to be on TV. And she's like, I guess if it's on TV, it's okay. And I ran upstairs, and it started, and it was the Adam West movie. And there had been some sort of like cultural disconnect where they were like, Batman, yeah, here it comes. It's Batman. Míralo. But it was the wrong one. And I still to this day haven't watched the full Adam West Batman movie because I just turned it off in disgust, which like, I think that might be the shark repellent one, or maybe
that is correct. Yeah. The 1966 movie.
So I missed that whole thing. That's another blind spot. So if we want to come back and do Batman 66, then I'm on board for that as well.
Well, we'll talk about at the end what other blind spots you might have to see for return guests. But yeah, you kind of got Turkish Spider-Man. You thought you were going for Tom Holland. You end up with like the really knockoff Eastern European version.
I did. Or the OG. I mean, like I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's fantastic. I started watching some of the original Batman episodes with my daughter, and she really dug it. She's into Eartha Kitt.
Nice.
So yeah. Anyway,
about the Lost Boys.
Oh yeah, that's the movie we were talking about.
Right. Fair.
So what do you actually think Lost Boys is? Like, how much do you feel like you know about it? How blind are you to some of the stuff in it? Because it is, a relatively big pop culture movie, or at least was in the late 80s.
Yeah, definitely. It was something that I really kind of, when I was in high school, I had friends who were like, "Oh, Lost Boys," and I was like, "Oh, I just never saw that." I also didn't see Monty Python until high school, so I don't know. There was some delayed stuff there. One might say there's some Arrested Development in some parts of my life, but whatever. Lost Boys, to my knowledge, I feel like it's made enough of a cultural impact that I know I can sort of glean references to it. I believe it's got both Corys. Is that correct?
Correct. The first of several that they did.
It was the first. Oh, it was the first double shot of Corey. Okay.
Wait, is that true?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Wow. That skipped by me in the research. Well done, Shawn.
It's on our notes.
Well, I don't read those.
We'll get to them after.
I know we've got Jason Patrick, who like is a severely underrated actor to me. I think he also he was like incredibly picky. He would do like, it almost seemed like he did Sleepers. He did this. He did like, like Dark Blue. Like he's a great actor, but you don't see him, and it's hard to name movies because he really would only do them every once in a while. And then he did Speed 2 Cruise Control, which and
reminded himself why he's picky.
Yeah, then he went back to being picky.
There you go. And I think Jamie Gertz is in it, who is one of the most underrated parts of Twister, I think. I rewatched that recently, and as a kid watching it, she plays this very. You guys want to talk about Twister for 45 minutes?
Sure, let's do it.
Oh no, I'm already on board with what you're about to say. Like, as
I just rewatched
older,
it too.
You're like, she wasn't nearly as naggy as she's supposed to come off as.
Well, that's her thing, right? That's her. It's kind of like in some ways it could be a thankless role in lesser hands, but she's amazing. She's incredible in that movie. There's this like heartbreaking moment where she's like, "No, Billy, it's okay. I'm okay." And you're just like, "Oh, Jamie Gertz." So like my primary Jamie Gertz frame of reference is Twister. So I'm excited to see her be either. I think maybe she's a vampire. I know on the poster, she's kind of reclining on Kiefer Sutherland's shoulder where, which is, I'm sure, a wonderful place. It would be great to be on Kiefer Sutherland's shoulder, I'm sure. But like, I'm assuming she's his vampire partner, I guess. Or like,
are you in partner? For a treat?
Oh my
treat. So I guess before we send you off to actually watch the movie, kind of talking about what you know about the movie and stuff. If I were to use the term sexy sax man, does that mean anything to you?
That is the other. So yeah, there are several references I have. One is like, there's like an open mouthed image of Kiefer Sutherland with fangs out. And I'm like, all right, that's Lost Boys. And then the other is the sax guy. The sax guy, who I believe was kind of paid homage to by John Hamm in an SNL sketch or something, which was great.
Correct.
And it was a pretty good match. I feel like a pretty good physical match, because I think that's the only thing I've seen really is that there's like a concert scene or something and some very liberally oiled, shirtless, I'm assuming vampire with like a Steven Seagal ponytail is like just cranking on that sax, man.
Yeah, that is hit meme culture and not gone away. I still see something about that sexy sax man very often. It's Tim Cappello who actually does a full number in the movie, but there's just one quick shot they cut back to where he's kind of shaking the hips that you've seen turned into GIFs and stuff.
Beautiful. I mean, like, good on that guy for like putting enough time into both his body and the saxophone to be able to pull off that, to cut that figure. It also like, I feel also like, I know Lost Boys, I think it seems to be about kids running around, maybe being seduced by this vampire cult to join them, is what my feeling is. But I kind of get it confused, not confused, but it overlaps in my head with like Fright Night, which I haven't seen either.
Oh, no.
And then around the same time, I think, is Near Dark, which is the other like leather jacketed, cool, sexy vampire movie. And Near Dark is great.
Everyone come back for episode 14, where we talk about Fright Night with Brian Villalobos.
And then Twister. And I'll pretend not to have seen it. And then it'll be, 2 hours of me going like, holy shit, dude, this movie's amazing.
Have you seen the Monster Squad?
I've not seen it. You know, it's weird here. This sucks. This doubly sucks because Monster Squad is the other one that my friends in high school would reference. I was like, I haven't seen that. I am right now wearing a Monster Squad reference T-shirt, and I haven't seen Monster Squad. It's a red shirt, and in yellow font it says Steven Spielberg.
Rules.
It says Steven Spielberg rules.
It's a riff on it. Okay, gotcha.
It is. So I'm kind of like, it's not as bad. I am a bit of a poser until I watch Monster Squad.
No, understood. Only reason I was asking about Fright Night Monster Squad you mentioned is that I would comp them to you as saying somewhere between Near Dark and those movies is what you're kind of in for. So again, no hype, no expectations. We'll be interested to hear what you think of it on the other side.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it listed as a horror comedy. That was not on my radar. I didn't have the feeling that it would be funny in any way, but I'm interested. It's got the Corys.
Indeed. So without further ado, what we will do is we will return in just a moment here to get Brian's thoughts on the film and much more. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Talk to you in the future.
Hey there, welcome back. What was mere seconds for you, the listener, was a good deal more for us. It is now time to quote Corey Haim several times to Diane Wiest to have a heavy conversation here. When we last left off, our guest, Brian Villalobos, had not seen The Lost Boys. He was late to the party, but at least he got here, and we welcome him back, a more cultured individual, a more learned film viewer who has now seen the 1987 vampire flick, The Lost Boys. Brian, do you feel any and all of those things now?
There was before Lost Boys and there was after Lost Boys, and never the twain shall meet. I am an hour and a half wiser. What's the runtime? Do you guys know?
I think it was 90.
Maybe like 97 or something. It's an hour shorter than modern blockbusters. We'll say that.
Yeah, no kidding. It's brisk. It's so. I don't know. I don't know how we want to do this. Am I just jumping right in with?
Yeah, you can start with some macro kind of overall thoughts on it. How you We'll get into the weeds with it, but yeah, just give us your initial reactions to it.
Awesome. And here's something I should have cleared up before right now. How much am I allowed to swear?
As much as you
fucking want.
All right. Because Lost Boys kicks fucking ass. It's fucking amazing. It's great. It's so nice to this happens every once in a while where there's a movie that I missed for some reason, and I just kind of I was like, it's on the list, but I'll get to it. It happened with with Multiplicity, just to immediately start talking about another movie. I'd never seen Multiplicity before, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. And I just missed it. And I was like, oh, okay. And I watched it, and it was unearthing this, I was like, oh, I remember these. I remember these solid mid-level, but reasonably high budget, but not crazy high budget, just family comedies, or just, there were effects in it, but it wasn't huge. And it was just so solid, and reminded me so much of Michael Keaton in the 90s and what he was in the 80s and 90s. And it just was oh man, there was just this I remember these movies, and here's another one. And I just got it unwrapped like a present. The Lost Boys was just like that, where I was at the risk of sounding old and everything that I am, they don't make them the way they used to. It's tight. It's like you said, it's 90 minutes. It tonally kind of moves around, and it doesn't give a shit, and is far better and more interesting for that. It doesn't feel uneven. It just goes, I don't have to be just a comedy or just a thriller or just a family story or just a, coming of age brothers, Goonies. It does a bunch of things and kind of just does it sure-handedly because it's Schumacher, and it looks great. And it just, I just, honestly, I wish I'd seen it when I was younger, but I'm glad that I saw it when I was older, to know that it's not just nostalgia. This movie is really, really good. It does so many things really well, and it does them pretty distinctly. There are movies that this reminds me of, but I think I'm more likely to say something reminds me of, aside from the Goonies or parts of other movies where I'm it feels, in places it feels like Near Dark, in places it feels like this. I'm more likely to say that something reminds me of Lost Boys now.
Well, that's exciting. So it's funny you bring up the Goonies, because it was originally pitched as Goonies with vampires.
Yeah.
You certainly feel that, right? Dick Donner was actually originally set to direct. And
that makes sense.
It was going to feel probably even more like Goonies. It only took the darker turn really when Joel Schumacher came on, and it took more of a horror turn, I guess. So yeah, the good call on the Goonies. That's definitely a thing. But I guess my question first and foremost would be, was it what you thought it was going to be? Or was it different than you thought it was going to be in your head?
I tried to kind of keep an open mind. Let me see. I don't know. I can't. It's hard for me to say whether I liked it more or less than I expected to. I didn't really even go in with a preconceived notion. I just knew it was a thing. But sometimes you go into something that's supposed to be a thing, and then 20 minutes in, you're like, why is this a thing? From the opening seconds, like it's got the classic 80s helicopter shot across a body of water into a city shot.
I hope that guy who did that gets residuals, because 30 minutes of that shot
earned his money on this shoot. There are many sweeping shots of the beach line, shots of the boardwalk.
I mean, it's totally like, I'm trying to think, like, it's like, oh gosh, like so many movies start that way. I feel like Lethal Weapon starts that way, the Donner pedigree. I feel like Bad Boys, it definitely starts that way. And then like a million movies in between. And this one does it. But that like Cry Little Sister track, oh gosh, when it kicked in, I was like, oh, I don't know this, but I know this. Like, apparently it's LA Guns, and it fucking kicks ass. Oh my gosh.
The good thing about the 80s was if you don't know that song, by the end of the movie, you definitely know that song, because I mentioned this to Cameron, in a very Top Gun vein, at some point it becomes the score. So like Take My Breath Away reprises multiple times through Top Gun to where it kind of just kicks in as the score. And this one does that too, multiple times.
They also got their money's worth from the Echo and the Bunnymen cover of People Are Strange, which plays probably 4 or 5 times too.
If you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, there's an interesting Jim Morrison motif that runs through the movie, which we could talk about. But it flies across the water, and I threw on subtitles eventually, because that's what I do. And then I went back and like right after I finished it, I immediately rewound to the beginning just to watch that opening again. And the lyrics to that song, it's so funny because by the end of it, I go, oh, it's all the same song. They play pieces of it. And there's stuff like, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not kill. And then it's about like, come little sister, love is like with your brother or something. And I'm like, what are we talking about? And then it just goes, cry little sister. And I go, I don't care. I don't care anymore what we're talking about. This is awesome. It's great. And then we fly right into a fair, like a carnival, right? Like a good old fashioned Coney Island situation, except it's in California. And that got me thinking, like, yesterday was July 4th, and we went to like a free community carnival to take the kids. And I was just walking around, and there's this kind of like, when you go to a carnival and the rides are there, but there's like a kind of a dark underbelly to everything. And you're like the rides are rusty and you don't really trust it. And I was kind of looking around going like, what are the Mount Rushmore, like, take place at a carnival movies? And then not 24 hours later, I'm watching Lost Boys and I go, this is one of them. This is 100% one of them. It reminded me of Us, Jordan Peele's Us, which I fucking adore. And I don't know that a lot of people adore that one, but I adore that one. And it felt like that was kind of in a good way riffing off of this or taking some inspiration from this.
Well, I believe,
there's a
Shawn,
direct line. Yeah. We talked about this on the one podcast with Aaron when we covered Us. There's a passing line in Us where they say they're down there shooting a vampire movie by the boardwalk, which is Santa Cruz doubles as the fictional Santa Carla in this movie. But yeah, that is the Santa Cruz boardwalk. It's still there today. It still is rusty and has an underbelly there today.
Oh, it's the exact same boardwalk?
Oh, yeah, it's still standing. They've updated a bit of rides, but I mean, it still has like an old flavor to it.
Oh, yeah, but Us.
But yes, it is the same one from Us. Yes.
That's incredible. No wonder.
I think Us takes place in 86, and they say this movie came in 97. Like, they're filming a vampire movie down by the boardwalk. It's just a quick throwaway line, but those who caught it know what they were referencing.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, bless them.
So I will say that boardwalk scene, I think, like totally sets the vibe of that city so quickly. And also immediately, like 8-year-old me, this movie was the quintessentially coolest movie I'd ever seen. It was like everything about it was cool. The way people dressed was cool. The saxophone guy was cool. It was just, this movie was, for 8-year-old me, was just the coolest thing that ever happened.
I had that. That's what I'm saying is like, I really, really enjoyed this. And I was like, oh, this movie kicks ass. I was like, if I had seen this when I was 8 or 9 or 11, it would have blown my mind. I would have never stopped talking about it. I also probably would have tried to hang upside down underneath a train bridge. So I'm glad that I didn't see it then. But yeah. Oh, this movie is so cool, like painfully cool. My God.
I picture you as more of a frog brother.
Less
of a vampire.
That's very fair. I'm not one of the vampire guys. I'd want to be, but
can we talk about the Frog Brothers for a second? Like,
can we?
You hit the nail on the head when you said like it changes tone and doesn't really apologize for it. Yes. Those two are like from a completely different movie. They feel like they're out of like Better Off Dead or some Savage Steve Holland movie.
Yes.
Like the stuff they're saying, the deadpan delivery. I love one of my favorite quotes in the movie is kill your brother. You'll feel better.
You're right. Oh my God.
Those guys are so great. They like are in on it from the beginning. They're like little adults. Like everything about those guys just blows my mind. They're like the funniest thing in that movie. I
agree. Oh, Steve Holland. That's a great reference too. Like it does bring in just enough of that shit where you're like, are there going to be claymation burgers dancing in a second? Like what the fuck's going to happen? Yeah.
Well, Feldman had just come off of being terrorized by Sutherland in Stand By Me, and he would worked with Donner on the Goonies, so that's how he made it. And the word was that Richard Donner said, hey, go watch these 5 Chuck Norris movies and all the Rambo movies that existed then and come back, and that's your character. And that's totally what Feldman is doing. He's some hybrid of like Rambo.
he's 100% doing Stallone. Like 3 seconds into it, I was like, what is he doing Stallone? And then I saw the headband. I was like, okay, he's doing Rambo.
He's Rambo.
He's definitely Rambo, which is great. Which I think... I'm trying to think from my childhood, the iconic Rambo imitations are. I just add Corey Feldman to it now, but it's like Weird Al Yankovic and Gizmo from
UHF. Both to the
Hot Shots.
Hot Shots Part 2.
What am I talking
Rambo
about?
Riff.
Thank you, Thank you very much. That is what an oversight. What an oversight. Diane Wiest is in this movie, which is wonderful. What a lovely surprise.
She brings a little class to the establishment. They're like, we need a heavy hitter. We need an Oscar caliber actress in this thing to bounce off the Corys.
She's so great.
Yeah, she brought that thing where like Diane Wiest always seems to be doing Diane Wiest. Like she's that same character in everything.
Absolutely. But she's just so wonderful. She has such a you're right. You plug Diane Wiest into it and you get a quality that you don't really get. It's like Karen Allen in The Sandlot. I'm like, oh, Karen Allen's the mom. And like Diane Wiest is just like, oh, this is great. I love this. Thank you. I don't need anything. I don't need to know anything about a character. I know everything within the first 3 seconds of her talking because it's Diane Wiest. It's great. I love it.
Right. Special shout out to the one playing opposite her, Edward Herrmann, who some people might recognize as a patriarch on Gilmore Girls or as Goldie Hawn's shitty husband in Overboard. But so many people do not realize they know that man's voice because he has narrated countless History Channel documentaries and plenty of nature and animal docs too. But like anytime you hear what a guy that sounds very sophisticated but not quite British, that's almost certainly Edward Herrmann narrating your documentary.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's a dude who I like. I usually pride myself on being pretty good at this, but like I saw him and I was like, oh, I know that guy. I know that guy so well. What do I know him from? I should have looked it up. It's not Gilmore Girls and it's not, maybe it might be Overboard, honestly, because Overboard is another really, really great 80s movie. And speaking of recognizing people from really great 80s movies, there is a half a second. They walk into that video store and Alex Winter, God bless him. Man, this movie is full of treasures. Thank you for giving me Alex Winter. I forgot he was in this. But he walks up and he's like, we only come in here to look at one thing. And the girl behind the counter, unless I'm sorely mistaken, is from Summer School, which is the best movie of all time. Do you guys know Summer School?
So I love Summer School. You know Mark Harmon and Kirstie Alley, right?
Yes. Yeah, we know Paper Street Pictures knows Summer School. We are all very fond.
Thank you so much.
The movie, my favorite part of Summer School is when the person who gets the highest score on the test is the guy who went to the bathroom and never came back.
Yeah.
That's so good. I don't know if that was her. If it is, that's a great poll.
No, real quick, I'm trying to figure out which girl because there's Kirstie Alley, there's Courtney Thorne-Smith. I'm trying to think which one
she's one of the students, and she's like, is she pregnant? I think she's the pregnant one. Hold on. Yep, it's her. It's 100% her.
Yeah, I totally know who you're talking about. Denise.
Her name is
Kelly Jo Minter.
Yeah, I think her name might be Denise in the movie.
That's a hell of a poll, Brian. Well done.
Well, I was like, holy shit. And I paused it. And there was like I was watching it on Amazon Prime. Shout out to Amazon Prime. I don't know if we're allowed to do that. But like you know how
no free rights. No, yeah, you can plug whatever.
No, yeah. Well, you know how I don't know if it links with IMDb and puts IMDb trivia as like a kind of an overlay if you pause it, and it had her name, and I didn't look it up, but I was like, oh, and it said the rest of her scenes were cut, and that kind of strengthened me. I was like, in my resolve, I was like, it's 100% her. It's 100% her because they're mentioning her, and anyway, she's great. And anything related to summer school makes me happy. There's so much in this movie that makes me very, very happy. Oh my gosh.
I think we could just do episodes of Brian watching 80s movies.
Yeah.
And just that, maybe that's the new podcast theme. It's just Brian Villalobos watches 80s movies and gushes.
Yeah. Well, we might as well record it. Well, no, I wish I was going to say that's what I do with my life. That is not at all what I do with my life. That is what I wish I had more time to do with my life.
To the point about the up and coming actors, though, many Hollywood royalty now had tried out for this movie. They were all angling to try to get in this movie. Ben Stiller being one of them. He's mentioned in interviews before. But to that point, Kiefer Sutherland still rather new. He was a nepo baby, so he was known. But he went on to work with Schumacher multiple times later in Flatliners and Phone Booth, among others.
I wanted to mention because like Schumacher, this movie opens and just again like 7 seconds in, I'm like, son of a bitch, Joel Schumacher knows how to make a movie, and he knows how to make it look great. Like this. Flatliners immediately came to mind. Falling Down. Screw it. Batman Forever. Like Batman Forever is what it is. I rewatched it more recently than one might expect, and I was like, you know what? This is entertaining. This works. This is okay. I like this. This is not bad.
Tigerland, a really good movie in there.
There you go.
Tigerland, very underappreciated.
I do agree with that. Yeah, Colin Farrell became his new Kiefer Sutherland that he started going to in the later years. But
yeah, did he do Phone Booth?
He did Phone Booth as well. Yeah, Kiefer was the voice in the background of that one. But to your point about him being already kind of a established guy, it was only his third feature. He'd done DC Cab and he did St. Elmo's Fire, which was a big enough hit that they tapped him for this because he was still pretty fresh in the feature world. So this was a big vote of confidence to give him this movie.
It just has so much style, man. So much. And all Schumacher stuff just always looks great, always has style. And it's just so well made. It's so tight. It sets everything up like, I mean, it goes, here's the world. And you go, what's the world? It's a beachfront carnival town, and there are roving gangs of leather-jacketed teenage vampires terrorizing people by just silently walking into their store and smiling. That's all they do. That's all they fucking do.
Also, the other thing they do is apparently come at them from the sky and rip them into the sky. In POV shots only. Like how that never matches up with anything they actually do in the movie.
Well, yeah, and I adored that because we get that shot of the security guard walking away, and like 5 minutes into the movie, they've utilized like 4 helicopters to shoot it. Like it sweeps down, and like it does this twice. You're right. Their primary mode of killing someone is peeling open their steel framed automobile like it's a tuna can, and then just sucking them up into the sky, like never to be seen again. And I was like, if they show this thing at the end, if they show their method of attack and it's anything other than like a gargoyle the size of a prop plane, like I'm going to be disappointed because what the fuck is doing this?
Well, they get to the house and then they become just the easiest vampires to kill.
Right.
But it doesn't even matter at this point because I'm so all in on the movie.
I'm so in.
They just are immediately killed by these bumbling idiot kids. Speaking of like what you were saying earlier about it being so like well constructed.
Yes.
They do a very good job of hiding the twist.
So well.
Where Max is by putting it out, like it's that thing where if you put it out in the daylight, people don't expect to come back.
So
like, did you see that coming? Was that, or did that?
So I did not until, and I will 100% say that in 1987, I never would have. Well, because I was a kid, but also like as a kid, I would never would have, because when he comes up, because they say that, right. And I want to say that happens after the dog thing. And he's like, the hellhound. It's like he's like, maybe Max is, and you're just like, oh, you kids are idiots. You kids are idiots. They do such a good job of it. But then when he comes to the door and goes, you're the man of the house. I'm not going to come in unless you invite me in. And he goes, you're invited. It's so great. Like that's what I went, oh my gosh, it really is. He is it. That's amazing. But I don't even think that was, like, for me, that wasn't really a widely acknowledged vampire thing, really, until Let the Right One In. I wasn't that aware of that.
Yeah, I didn't know either, really. I agree with you on that. I think that was the one that really led to that. And speaking of characters that are throwing you off the scent, one of the all-time great final lines in a movie where bumbling, clueless grandpa, who has no clue anything is going on throughout the whole movie, or so we think, hits you with one thing about living in Santa Clara I could never stomach: all the damn vampires.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like chef's kiss, the perfect way to end the movie.
What's so funny, because like literally, I want to say Kiefer Sutherland gets antlered, everything's melting, everything's fine. And then Grandpa comes bursting through the door, and I go, "Oh yeah, Grandpa!" And like I hear the da 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 da. There's so much. 80s movies did this, and 90s movies, the good ones, really did this thing that I think movies are still trying to nail. And every once in a while they do, where they give you something that seems not necessarily to follow logically from anything you're seeing, but like you just go, it works as world building instead of as a non sequitur. You're like, yeah, Grandpa has La Cucaracha as his horn, and it goes meow, and that's his thing. There's just so much. There's so much in this movie early on where they go, this is the world, like a carnival setting for a vampire movie. That doesn't seem to make sense, but great. It all fits. And so he burst through the door, and I go, oh yeah, Grandpa. And I swear 4 minutes before it happened, I go, the one thing is that I feel like Grandpa would know about that shit. I feel like Grandpa would know about the vampires. Whatever. And then fucking 4 minutes later, he says that. I go, oh my gosh. And he's drinking blood, maybe? What is he drinking?
That is a question I don't think we're equipped to answer. I love that the more we talk, the more I'm convinced next time I see you, you're going to have like a Lost Boys poster like up in your living room, and your wife's going to be mad at me because you won't take down your shrine to Jason Patrick.
Or to shirtless Rob Lowe, like Corey Haim has.
Oh, you were the king of the segue, because that takes us into another thing we have to hit on here, is that this is in an era where you had to hide it a little bit. This is a very gay movie.
In the best of ways, of ways. Like, and I don't even necessarily, because I did read that like people were like, oh, is Joel kind of being like, is he putting that stuff in there? And if so, fucking awesome. I don't even know that he's necessarily hinting at the Corey Haim character's sexuality, but I just love that it's in there. And I love that all this, like, I think the thing I read was like, and Corey Haim's character is fashion conscious. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, he is. But it's awesome. There is a scene where like Jason Patrick comes in, and I swear what Corey Haim is wearing is a dress.
Yeah, like, I know the scene you're talking about. It's something like that. He definitely is fashion forward. He definitely has the guy's posters on his walls. I think it's not a far leap to make, but I love that it doesn't beat you over the head with it.
Yes,
and also, I mean, I think there's a real argument to be made here that this movie is kind of a love triangle.
Yes.
I feel it's pretty clear that David, the lead vampire, is kind of into Michael and not all that into Jamie Gertz. So and why would he be? Because can we talk about how good looking Jason Patrick is in this movie? He is like, oh my God, he is like Tiger Beat good looking in this.
He is incredible. And he always has been. That's why I was like, and I've thought this many times before. And then he pops up on screen here, and I go, why the fuck isn't he the biggest movie star in the world? Like what? And it's because he's picky. And I also this blew my mind. I think I read this maybe 5 minutes ago. He is Jason Miller's son. He's Father Karras' son.
Yeah, I have that in the notes here, actually. I did not know that until looking up this movie that he himself was a Nepo baby.
Exactly. It made me cry. I was like, that's awesome. And then I was immediately depressed, because I was like, even a dude as good looking and gifted as Jason Patrick maybe doesn't get his foot in the door unless Father Karras throws himself out the window first, I'll do you one better. Not only is that his father from The Exorcist, but his maternal grandfather was comic legend Jackie Gleason. I quit. I'm gone. I'm
well,
done.
At least Kiefer Sutherland bootstrapped it the old-fashioned way.
You're right.
Yeah, didn't he used to tell a story that he slept in his car, and everybody's like, okay, pal, your dad was Donald Sutherland. Come on.
Yeah, you slept in the car because you were high and drunk and you couldn't get through the door.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Jackie Gleason. Well, that's not fucking. So then Jason Miller is fuck this.
Yeah, that's while we're ragging on celebrities.
Yeah.
Jason Patrick kind of cucked Kiefer in this film and in real life, allegedly, because Sutherland was set to marry Julia Roberts, who runaway brided him in real life. And it was very shortly thereafter dating Patrick. that has been apparently proven to be a little bit of tabloid sensationalism because both actors denied it and then they actually rekindled their friendship years later. So I don't think he held it against Jason Patric so much as he held it against the other curly haired girl.
Interesting.
Yeah, Jamie Gertz, I agree, had a moment there pre-Twister in the 80s between this and Less Than Zero and Solar Babies. Anybody ever heard of that movie?
I love Solar Babies. You will not find an 80s movie I haven't heard of.
I've not seen Solar Babies, but apparently that's how, like, Jason Patric apparently recommended Jamie Gertz because they
exactly,
were
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
That guy's done his research,
too,
Shawn. This guy's done his research. He should be hosting this.
I read through a little bit of the IMDb trivia. That's what I did.
You've done way more research than I did for this.
Submitted by Lost Boys fan 6699. Yeah,
that's
so
me. That's actually
no. Got it. That's me now. Fuck me. This movie's great.
So, all right, Brian. Now we got to hit you with the most important question.
Got it.
Best quote from the movie.
Oh my gosh. Hold on. I wrote some down.
There's only one correct answer here.
Okay.
Grandpa's line's iconic. We've talked about that one.
Yeah, no, that one's great. Well, I wrote down 3, and now I'm saying there's only one correct answer. So
okay, let me check.
3 correct answers.
Let me give you a top like 4 or 5.
Hit me with them. Hit me with all of them.
I'll have to look through them because I wasn't prepared for this. But
it's okay.
What was one of them you already mentioned? I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Kill Your Brother. It'll make you feel better.
Yes.
Right.
Classic.
That would be my number 2, I think. Kill Your Brother, you'll feel better. Ooh. Okay. That one. Okay. Here are some sleepers. There's a part of the scene where they're giving him the Chinese food that turns into vermin, bad stuff. And he
noodles become maggots. Yeah.
Maggots, right? And then the noodles become the worms. And he looks at it and it's worms. And he's like, oh, it's worms. And they're making fun of him. And one of the guys in the background goes, nice worms, which I really like. Big fan of that one. It's like probably just ADR, but I fucking love it. Let me see. There's a shit sucking vampire. Just wait till mom comes home or what? Something like that. You're a shit sucking vampire. Just wait till mom finds out. Or
Corey Haim spent the whole movie, by the way, threatening to tell mom about the vampires. Never got around to it. Because mom, despite being a bit of a helicopter mom, is never fucking around.
Definitely.
She is always off working at the video store and trying to get laid.
Oh my gosh. There's how much do you think we should charge him for this? Is this good? That's nice. I like it. That's good. A real good one is looks like I'm not the only one who got lucky last night. Go Grandpa. You did the right thing by calling us. Here, I wrote down a few, I guess. He always had bad breath, though. I like that one. That's a real like aiming for the target market there for like 6th grade.
I love that you haven't hit my 2 favorites.
Yeah, well, no, I'm excited. There's one other one that there's one that I think I misread. I misunderstood the or maybe not. Maybe it's a little double entendre because he's like, I'm off to see the Widow Jones or whatever. And Jason Patric goes, what did you stuff for her? and then he goes, did you stuff the old man or something? And I was like, they sort of like rounded it out so that it didn't mean what I thought it meant. I was like, good Lord.
They're going hard all of a sudden.
Anyway, that's what I've got. Hold on.
All right, I'll give you mine. Shawn, do you want to take it? No, you've got the doc. I can't ask. So my second favorite line after towards the end when Edward Herrmann's character is like, hey, we can just all make it work. Let's all be best friends. And somebody goes, oh, great. The blood-sucking Brady Bunch.
Right.
Which I love. And the best line in the whole movie is when he shoots the vampire with the arrow and he gets killed on the stereo and gets zapped or whatever. And he says death by stereo.
That's right. Oh, I have that one written down. I missed it. I have death by stereo written down right after I wrote, and I was typing these into Gmail. So I would think I was speech to texting. So it says this movie kicks F asterisk, 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 ass. No. Because I just like screamed this movie kicks fucking ass into my phone. And then he said death by stereo. And then I was like, that was the moment where I was like, I wish I had seen this when I was 10 years old.
Death by Stereo is, I think, probably a top 10, 90 or 80s movie quote of all time.
There's Death also like, because there are the like gonzo great 80s quotes. And then there's one where I'm like, oh, that's like a good quote. That kicks ass. Where he's up there and he goes, where Kiefer Sutherland is like, my blood is in your veins. And then Jason Patric goes, so is mine. And like fights back. I love it. I just love it. He's like,
actually, Kiefer has some really good lines in the movie. They're just not as funny.
Yeah.
Kiefer does a lot of heavy lifting in the movie and he doesn't get as much credit because he's like the straight man in the craziness.
Yes.
But yeah, he does a really good job with that. Also, I love that
near as many lines as you think, though. Most of his lines are just Michael. Michael.
He's a man in love. I love that we've gotten this far and we haven't even talked about Sexy Sax Guy yet.
Oh
we'll get there. Hold on. We'll save him for the end, though. Even that, though, his whole I Still Believe, another song that might be an earworm now that you've heard it almost in full. They play almost the whole song for the concert on the beach. Yeah, all the stuff we were talking about earlier with Schumacher, like that stuff was definitely, he was being subversive. Yes, the 80s in hindsight, so much gay stuff was hidden on the surface and some of the machismo in the movies and stuff with the leather and the whole thing. But I do think he was not at all trying to be coy about it with what he was doing with that movie.
Well, that's fucking awesome. Yeah, it's so great. Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, you're right. There's an oiled up sax guy. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Which is he singing? That guy's not really singing.
That is Tim Cappello. He is also a singer. That's his song. And I believe he still tours. I know he does conventions and stuff. He leans into it. He's fun. He's kind of going along with the gag of him being a modern meme.
You are fucking kidding. I just figured they got a dude who was jacked and had him lip sync and fake a sax. That's real?
Nope. He is a real musician. That's his song.
Oh, God bless him. Oh my God!
Might have been the second biggest charting one off the soundtrack. I know the movie actually features a few other huge songs that didn't make it, like the Run DMC version of Walk This Way is in the movie. But as the soundtrack goes, I Still Believe and Cry Little Sister were like hits at the time.
I did think it was like adorable when they come upon like I get it. You just fixed it for me. I was like, they came upon this like vampire bonfire and they're playing Run DMC's Walk This Way, which is adorable. Like they're like, this is the most hardcore song we could think of. But it wasn't them. It was the dudes they turned or murdered or turned. I don't know.
They murdered what they're doing with these people that they scoop up from the sky.
Right.
Well, no one knows where those guys are landing or what.
I want to go back to one thing because you're talking about the turning. The reason the gag about the worms and all worked is that he didn't believe that the wine was blood. So that was like the third try, like the Cry Wolf thing. So he ended up drinking it. But Brian, have you seen the film or the TV show What We Do in the Shadows?
I have not. To my discredit.
You are just vampire deficient. I am. Yeah, the movie version of What We Do in the Shadows plays on that, where he has a guy at the house and he's like, hope you're enjoying your worms. And he's like, I'm just kidding. It's spaghetti. He's doing a riff on the Lost Boys bit.
That's fantastic. Is it Jermaine Clement? Oh no, it's the
third guy that's not Taika, not Jermaine. I can't pull his name right now.
Fantastic. I need to see that immediately. Yeah, that's great. There's also there's this interesting thing where, and I can't figure if it was that it was the 80s or that they're just kind of playing up the difference between Jason Patric before and after, which I think maybe it's a little of both, but like not in like a weird way. The brothers early on are like extremely physically affectionate. I don't know if you noticed, but like they're always like hanging on each other. And there's like early on, they stumble into the room because Jason Patric, who looks like he's 25.
Yeah. He's always chasing him.
You're like, you guys are playing fucking tag. What's going on? And then they turn around and they say something. They're like, Grandpa, whatever. And they're talking and like Jason Patric has to like brush Corey Haim's hand away from his face. He was just like touching him. Not like, again, not weird. Like they're just brothers and they're fucking whatever. I mean, I was a little like, wow, I'm surprised they're showing them being this affectionate. But then when he turns into a vampire, I was like, oh, they're setting up the before and after. So you notice a change. But it was also kind of like, like as in the Goonies, which like, clearly they're like, this is very the Goonies. You got a brother, brothers at the middle and they care about each other, but they don't like Josh Brolin's kind of a dick to Rudy. To Sean Astin. And then eventually he kind of comes around. But like early on, this is kind of, I guess, the reverse. Like Jason Patric is a very good brother to him. Like he cares about his brother a lot and isn't afraid to show it. It's interesting.
Well, this is also a movie that suffers from that thing where you got a bunch of 25-year-olds playing 16-year-olds. And like,
definitely.
It was you're right. And especially because it happened so early on, it felt very weird because it looked like Haim looks like he's about 12 and Patrick looks like he's about 25 and they're playing tag in the house. It's just like, this is weird. Like it takes a second to settle in on Patrick being a teenager.
This isn't a 90210 situation where they were like 35. The Kiefer and Jason Patric both were 20 while filming in 1986. Yeah. You remember that, how they have these videos of people from the 80s, these clips, and you're like, holy shit, people really did look older then than they do now.
Goodness gracious. Kiefer Sutherland was 20?
Yeah. They were both 20 playing 18-ish. And
that dude. Oh my God. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like they are younger than we're thinking, but yes, they're playing a couple years younger, but it's not egregious like.
He just looks older, like it's that hair or something. Jason Patrick looks like a full blown adult in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. Kiefer Sutherland, it may be the Billy Idol mullet or whatever, but like he just always looks 40, even though like they have close-ups and his skin is as smooth as porcelain. But
he looked 30 for 10 years, and now he's looked 50 for like 15 years.
There you go. It's a good way to go. And then Jason Patrick is like built like a tight end or something. I'm like, who is this dude? He's the kind of guy where we watch a movie and you're 12 or 13 and you're like, I'm supposed to look like that in 3 years? That's not going to happen. Like,
I'm still waiting to look like that.
Yeah, now it's like, oh gosh, now you got to go backward. I'm like, I never got that. Where was that supposed to happen? What was I going to say? They do say Michael so much. My gosh, they say Michael
so much.
Maybe speaking of Jason Patrick, they walk into they play People Are Strange, and then they go into the vampire's underground resort thing, collapsed resort, which I was like, that's a cool idea. But I was like, that's just a cave. I don't see a resort. I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. That looks like a cave. But anyway, the vampire cave, and they've got this big Jim Morrison poster, which I was like, is this like are you kind of Men in Black saying Jim Morrison was a vampire or what? Or they just like Jim Morrison because everyone likes Jim Morrison. And then they crossfade between Jason Patrick's face and the Jim Morrison poster. I'm like, I fucking get it. Okay. Wow. Or maybe I didn't get it until then. I was like, he does look exactly like Jim Morrison. This is ridiculous.
I found myself going, I wonder why Oliver Stone didn't cast him indoors.
Exactly.
Kilmer was a dead on for it at the time, but I wonder if maybe Schumacher at this age was like, I really want to make a Doors biopic.
Yeah. And then if he hadn't cast Kilmer, that'd be weird because he's his Batman. It's just, oh man. But dude, Schumacher is just so fucking good. He just is so good.
Speaking of Schumacher, as we start to wrap up here, or do you have any other Joel Schumacher blind spots? Is he or are you good with the Schumacher?
Let me run through his because it's interesting that Donner produced this and that you were saying that Donner was going to direct it and then Schumacher took over because
correct.
There's a bit of comparison there too, where I'm like, oh yeah, those dudes are cut from the same cloth. Like Donner's shit is always so solid. Always. Like it doesn't, I don't know. I mean, there may be some Donner films that I've seen that I didn't think were super tight, but I can't think of him off the top of my head.
No, but he overall was a very competent filmmaker. Even some of his maybe not regarded as classic movies are still very well put together.
Oh my gosh. And Schumacher is a dude. He's another of those dudes where you go, yeah. And you name 2 or 3 and you're like, that's Schumacher. And then you go back to his filmography and you're like, holy shit, what? You just completely, or I at least completely forget about stuff like, here, I'm going to go through. I completely forget about The Client, which I've never seen. I've never seen A Time to Kill. He had 2 Grishams.
Oh, you've never seen A Time to Kill.
Got both Sutherlands in it, Kiefer and Donald.
I've never seen
Kiefer Collabos.
I remembered Flawless, which I haven't seen. I've never seen 8mm.
Kind of a downer. That's kind of a downer.
And I've never seen the number 23, which I was at least interested in seeing. But I definitely saw. Oh, or Veronica Guerin. I didn't know he did that. Wow.
I forgot that was even a movie.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think it was at least respected. But yeah, I've seen Falling Down, Flatliners. I wouldn't mind seeing Dying Young just to round out that 90s. I haven't seen some St. Elmo's Fire. That was interesting because they have is it Molly Ringwald on the wall as well as Rob Lowe?
That is her, yeah, from Breakfast Club.
Yes, and those are some other serious blind spots. Like I have not seen Pretty in Pink or what's the other one? What's the other Molly Ringwald one?
16 Candles was the trilogy of John Hughes movies she did.
That's it. I have not seen 16 Candles. Speaking of John Hughes, and speaking of people where I'm not sure what age they are, there's a whole ass fucking Macaulay Culkin sequence with Corey Haim in the bathtub putting bubble bath over his or whatever the fuck he's doing. That was a moment where I was like, wait, is he 13 or is he 9? What the fuck is happening here?
Early on in this movie, it's really hard to gauge the age of those 2 brothers, man. Haim is like Ferris Bueller ended up in the bathtub. It's like, I don't look, I teach their own. I don't want to alienate the bathtub enthusiasts, but I don't remember taking baths at 13 or 14. I don't. Maybe that's a thing. And
to you guys' point about his lifestyle with his single mother, divorced mother, he is apparently supposed to be the same age as Corey Feldman and his actual in-movie brother. And he comes off obviously much more sheltered and much more naive. And I think a lot of that stuff plays into that. he shows up and these guys are like, "Hey, what's up? Vampires are real." And he's like, "What?"
Yeah.
they like Grandpa live in this sleepy town where like some people aren't fully asleep. Some people are very aware they're just missing people all over this bummy hippie coastline.
Very true. Although as much as I hate to say it, if you remake Lost Boys now, which don't do that, but if you do, those kids are like real close to being like QAnon. Like,
yeah,
which makes
they're teetering.
Makes me sad. Makes me sad. No, but awesome. They're like in those halcyon innocent times when conspiracy theories were like innocent things to be laughed at. It's nothing short of delightful. And I love where he's like, where you, another great line that like just gets immediately swallowed up by all the other great lines is when they come in and they're like, he's like, I'm checking out I'm scoping your civilian threads or whatever. And he's like, where are you from? I can't even remember what he says. He's like, no, Phoenix. And he's like, well, the Diet frozen yogurt shop went out of business. Like he's just basically calling him like a lame white dude, which is like great. And then he comes back at him and earns their respect by being like, Batman number 14, man, is what I'm looking for. And he's like, he drops some Superman knowledge on him. And they're like, all right, this guy's hip. This guy's with it. He clearly, he doesn't take bubble baths and sing, because directly before that is the thing where like something happens outside. Jason Patrick turns and he's like, I got to take care of vampire shit because I'm half vampire. And he's like, take your bath. And it's like, oh. And then he runs upstairs and we cut and it's like, do, 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 or whatever the song it is. And he's fucking, yeah, it's just hilarious. It's so funny.
It is such a mismatch of tones it's so funny how mismatching tones like that can work to perfection sometimes.
I know.
And just nuke a movie other times. So like it just speaks to Joel Schumacher.
Definitely.
And the talent of these actors that they were able to pull it off. I mean, like this is like an Outsiders level cast when you look at it. Like this is
absolutely. It's so great. It's so great.
I love it. I'm so happy you like this movie because I love this movie. Any where I think we're got to wrap soon, but any parting thoughts, any more?
I had these aren't things that I didn't like, but these are questions that I had.
Sure.
When Grandpa burst through the wall in his car, murdering Edward Herman, to me, it's unclear whether, and I think it's going to be the latter of these two things, but I much prefer the former. It's unclear whether he rigged a giant sharpened stick to the front of his car, like some sort of like Kenner Toys, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Sherwood Forest playset. Or we're supposed to believe that he ran through the wall and sharpened wooden pieces of the house fell on top of the car and then were flung with such force that it perforated him and shoved him in the fireplace, which then exploded into a ball of fire.
Well, I will say he had, those were the stumps that he was using to build the fence. So they were on the car
on purpose
as he was driving on purpose. Now, I don't think he sharpened it because he thought he was coming home to vampires, although you could make that argument probably, but I think he knew they were on there. I mean, it's kind of a lucky throw.
Yeah, they were fitted and he came through because watching it, that final line kind of drives home that he knew, no pun intended.
Definitely.
He's always known what's going on, that he was hip to them bringing the body upstairs. He's been hip to all the weird behavior. And he came and saved the day. And that final line kind of drives home that he's probably known the whole time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he retrofitted and drove through to kill the big bad.
Well, I love that way better. If he has fashioned some sort of Santa Carla vampire killing Mad Max mobile, that really makes me happy. The other thing is, again, just a question. So Laddie, who is this little kid vampire who like just ups the stakes. Sorry, no pun intended, even more.
That pun was definitely intended.
It actually wasn't until I said it. And then I was like, oh, fuck it. But he, like when he turns, you're like, oh shit, the kid's a fucking vampire. What are we going to do? And they go like, it's Eddie Munster on the attack or something. And you're like, what are we going to do? And then when Jason Patrick turns into a monster, you're like, oh, okay, everything's cool. Because we're just going to kill the head vampire and everything's good. So then you're like, okay, everything's fine. Jamie Gertz never turns into a monster, even though she's been a vampire for longer. But my question about Laddie is that he's on the milk carton, which is a great touch. But that means that he is a missing child from a family in town somewhere. And now it's like, is he going to live with Jamie Gertz and Jason Patrick? Or is he going to go back to his family? I guess he's probably going to go back to his family.
No, I think they live like a creepy, nuclear family of vampires going forward.
And then they run into the near dark people and they have a softball team, a softball game.
She was hiding them. Baseball and vampires go so well together. We've all seen Talley.
I think Schumacher could pull it off. based on this.
Now, I know, Brian, that you said that you hope there's not a sequel, but I got to be honest. Well, there's been a couple and they're bad, but I got to be honest. I would watch a Frog Brothers movie.
Yeah.
If they did a Frog Brothers movie where those guys are somewhere fighting vampires, I'm in. I'm so in for that.
Yeah, man. Oh, I would. It's so good. I've started to kind of go like, I don't want a sequel when so much of the film, and really pretty much the whole film, when so much of the film is so well fucking done, and particularly when it's like when they tried to remake Total Recall, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? That movie works almost by accident. I love Paul Verhoeven. Like, I adore Paul Verhoeven, and that movie is fucking bonkers and is just right at the edge of like what I'll accept as all right, I'll swallow everything you're giving me, and it's amazing. And like when they tried to do it, and I never saw the remake, but like when I heard that they were like, no, it's not crazy, they tried to make it serious, I was like, you are missing the point of Total Recall. Right. If you want to make the serious one, you call it We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, and you don't call it It's Total Recall, you fuckers. Again, I haven't seen it. Maybe it's great. But when so much of them, what's that? It's not
great. Its biggest offense is it came off kind of boring and bland, to your point.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if you're going to, like, when a movie works so well, particularly when there are different tones that are like hard to juggle, because when it works well, you just go, oh, of course, it just feels organic. And you go, of course, that's just Lost Boys. And you're like, no, those are like 6 or 7 differing tones that Schumacher balanced expertly. And that's what made Lost Boys. And that's why there's a thing that you can say that's Lost Boys about. If you try to remake something like that, I'm just like, don't take inspiration from it and do a new thing. Just do a new fucking thing that sort of feels like it. And then maybe people will love that, but I don't know. In a world
are better than remakes. We've talked about this. Star Wars works because he couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon, and Fast and Furious works because it wasn't a Point Break remake. Who remembers the Point Break remake? Everybody remembers Fast and the Furious.
And I also like there was a moment where when he first meets David, and then he's like, oh, you don't have to beat me. Just try to keep up. And then they're having a fucking motorcycle race on the beach under the docks. I was like, this has real Point Break vibes. Although Point Break came afterward. Okay. All right.
I believe so. Yes.
That tanks that. That's definitely 90.
That scene crawled so Point Break could run.
There you go.
Remember, the early 90s were still the 80s.
Very true.
So, Brian, before we let you get out of here, you got anything to plug or promote? Anything you want to put out in the world?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I. Well, I got a couple features coming out that I'm actually really, really excited about. 2 or 3 of them that they're vastly different. Like, I get to play a sad dad in one, which is one of my favorite things to play. And then a guy who goes crazy on meth in one, and then a kind of a guy going crazy in the pandemic during one. But I don't know if I can mention the names, and so I'll just leave it at that. And that's not much of a plug. But hey,
we'll throw some links to social media and such for you in our show notes when we get this episode up, so they can find you there, and we'll tag you in it all the same as well.
Sure. That the latter is a thriller, and then the previous one is like really kind of a movie about isolation and the pandemic and sort of the last 20 years of American history as seen through archival footage. So that's what's going on.
Very cool. If you've ever seen Brian Villalobos in anything, you know that you want to see him in everything. So. And of course, if you really, really want to see them, you can go see Blood Relatives or Scare Package 1, both on Shudder currently. That's kind
Please
of
do.
us,
and let's talk about the irony that one of the 2 features he's been in with us was a vampire movie. We just found out today his biggest blind spot is vampire movies.
True.
What can I say? I like to go in fresh.
I will only say this before we let you go, is that if you truly are still on the vibe of this movie, Fright Night and Monster Squad, again, were 2 very close comps that somewhere between Near Dark and those movies I said was Lost Boys. So if you find yourself wanting more of this kind of thing, they are in the kind of same general cluster of movies.
I am so on board. And can I say quickly, that I like, aside from this being a Paper Street podcast and aside from my show and my face in those movies, like, I adore both Blood Relatives and Scare Package so fucking much. Like, I really, really do. Those are really, really enjoyable things to make, and also really, really enjoyable to me because one was an anthology and the other one, it was like sort of a smaller role. Like, I got to experience so much of it as like an audience member, and I just really adore them. both. And I don't know, people should watch them, not because I'm in them, but because they're fun.
Oh, well, thank you, buddy. You know, everybody at Paper Street loves you, and we're excited to have you on the pod, and we're excited to get you in some more movies soon, because
sounds great.
You're
Sounds
a big time talent. So we want to keep putting you in stuff. So,
well,
and also your lovely wife, Akasha, we want to put her in things too. So
she's wonderful. She's great. Thank you, guys. Thank you for showing me this movie.
Thank you. We're glad you were late to the party, but we're glad you got here.
Yeah, it's a good party. It's the only thing that would make it a better party is if there were an actual sexy sax guy, and then it would be a whole vampire Lollapalooza, and or fucking they take him to like those kids somehow end up at Vampire Burning Man, and I'm just really interested how they got a fucking ticket. Like, it's awesome.
I still believe.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Later.
Thanks again to Brian Villalobos. That was a fun talk, and I am very much glad that he responded to that movie the way we kind of thought he was going to.
Yeah, absolutely. He loves the movie as much as I love the movie, which is good to hear. I'm glad he was so infectious, and it was a fun conversation.
Yeah, it's we got into most of the tidbits about it, and I just thinking rewatching it, it's something I've seen enough that I didn't even really need to revisit it, but I did in the interim here. And people forget just how influential this movie was, not just like you said on some fashion and some stuff, but like vampire IPs. Near Dark had come out at the same time as did Monster Squad, but Buffy was majorly influenced by this, and the fact that their kind of brows switch a little bit when they switch into vampire mode. The character Spike was very much in the Kiefer Sutherland vein with the blonde hair. He's kind of like half Kiefer, half Billy Idol on that show. But yeah, it made a mark in a few ways. But again, it was a big enough movie that we thought to cover this on an episode. So yeah, it's one of those that's in the zeitgeist to this day, and it may be because of Sexy Sex, man. But yeah, still a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad we did it. I was glad I got a chance to go back and rewatch a movie that I loved so much as a child, and it still definitely holds up, and I still love it today, which is not something I can say about every movie from the 80s. So I'm happy we got a chance to do this one, and looking forward to putting it out in the world and letting everybody give this podcast a listen.
Yeah, and if you stuck with us through this, thank you so much for listening. This has been Late to the Party, a presentation of Paper Street Pictures and of the Paper Street Podcast. Sorry if we sucked. That's my sign off on the other show. You know what? I'm just going to say thank you, Michael. No. Thanks for listening. I'm Shawn, Talley. That's Cameron Burns. We'll see you again on the next one.
Bye, guys.